Overthinking is just a fancy word for fear. That's it. That's the whole game. You can dress it up, justify it, write a 10-step plan around it, but at the core, you're just scared, scared to fail, scared to be judged. Scared that what you try won't work out the way you want it to, and instead of admitting that to yourself, you call it being careful, or being strategic, or waiting for the right time. But let's cut the crap. You're not waiting on timing, you're waiting on permission, and the only person you're waiting on is yourself. Fear wears a suit called overthinking. It talks in circles. It brings up every possible scenario of what might go wrong and convinces you that unless you can predict every outcome, you shouldn't act. That mindset is poison. It paralyzes you. It creates this illusion of being productive because you're thinking, but what are you actually doing? You're burning time, you're analyzing yourself out of progress, you're convincing yourself that inaction is wisdom when really it's fear doing a great job of sounding logical. Here's the hard truth. Nothing you think will prepare you for the punch in the mouth that life's going to throw at you anyway. You can plan for 6 months, and life will hit you with something you never saw coming on day one. So what was the point of all that overthinking? You didn't avoid the pain, you just delayed the growth. You want to know what overthinking really is? It's a stall tactic. It's your brain doing everything it can to avoid risk. And guess what? Growth lives in risk. Growth lives in discomfort, and that's why overthinking is so dangerous, because it makes you believe that sitting still is safer than moving forward. But sitting still is the most dangerous move of all. You lose time, you lose energy, and you lose momentum. Every day you overthink is a day you're not building, not learning, not improving. People talk a big game about wanting success, wanting freedom, wanting to live on their own terms. But most of them are paralyzed by fear disguised as thought. They say they want to start a business, create content, apply for that dream job, start that side hustle, but then they think about it for 6 months. They overanalyze every step. They imagine all the worst case scenarios, and in the end they do nothing. Meanwhile, someone with half their talent, half their ideas, half their IQ, but twice their courage, is out there winning. This isn't about being reckless. This is about being real. Life rewards movement. Life rewards those who try, fail, learn, and do it again. You're not going to think your way into success. You're going to act your way into it. Thinking is valuable up to a point, but at some stage you need to decide. You need to pull the trigger. You need to post the thing, make the call, pitch the idea, ship the product. You need to get off the sideline and onto the field. Overthinking loves comfort zones, it thrives in them, it gives you this false sense of control. Like if you just think a little more, you can avoid failure altogether, but failure isn't something you should be avoiding, it's something you should be sprinting toward. Because every failure teaches you something no book or plan ever could. Every misstep brings clarity, every stumble builds character, and none of that happens if you're stuck in your head. People think their brain is keeping them safe, but most of the time, your brain is keeping you small. It's whispering lies in a convincing tone, telling you that you're not ready, that you need more time, that you should wait until the conditions are perfect. But here's the kicker, conditions are never perfect. There is no perfect moment, there's just now, and the people who win in life are the ones who understand that imperfect action beats perfect thinking every time. Look around. How many people do you know who are constantly talking, planning, dreaming, and doing nothing? Be honest. You probably already know how to do the thing. You've watched the YouTube videos. You've read the blogs. You've taken the courses. You don't need more information. You need more courage. You need to get comfortable being uncomfortable, because growth only happens when you're willing to move before you're ready. The truth is, most of the fear in your head is made up. 99% of the things you're scared of never happen, but you waste energy preparing for them anyway, and while you're sitting there running simulations in your mind, life is passing you by. Someone else is taking the shot you were too afraid to take, so stop calling it overthinking. Call it what it is, fear, and once you name it, you can fight it, you can override it, you can move in spite of it. You'll never eliminate fear, but you can train yourself to act anyway. That's the difference between the people who talk and the people who win. You don't need another opinion. You don't need another motivational quote. You need to act, take the first step, then take another, and don't stop, because the life you want doesn't exist in your head. It exists on the other side of action. Nobody cares until you do something. That's the reality people don't want to admit because it's harsh. It sounds cold, but it's true. You can talk about your dreams all day, share your vision, tweet out motivational quotes, build a perfect little plan in your head, and still, nobody will care. Why should they? You haven't done anything yet. You haven't shown them anything real, and no one is sitting around waiting for your potential to bloom. People are busy, the world is loud. Everyone's focused on their own life, their own goals, their own mess. If you want attention, respect, recognition, you have to earn it. You have to show up and do something. You keep thinking people are going to recognize your greatness because you have ideas, but the world doesn't pay for ideas. It pays for execution. That app you thought about 3 years ago, somebody else already built it. That video concept you kept talking about, someone else shot it, posted it, and got the engagement while you were still doubting yourself. You're not lacking talent. You're just not moving. You're stuck in your head thinking about how good it could be, while the people who are less gifted than you are out there taking shots, failing publicly, learning faster, and getting ahead. You don't get credit for what you meant to do. You don't get points for potential. Life rewards action. You want people to believe in you. Give them something to believe in. Put something out into the world. Start the business, release the track, post the content, build the product, make the call, put your name on something and say, "This is mine, I made this is what I believe." That's when people start to take notice. When you create something real, something they can see, feel, interact with, until then it's all noise. You think people are sleeping on you. No, they're not. They just don't know you exist because you haven't done anything loud enough to make them pay attention. And when I say loud, I don't mean hype or drama. I mean consistency, repetition, grit, showing up every day and doing the work, making progress in public, building in front of people, not behind closed doors hoping one day someone finds you. People notice those who don't flinch, who don't just say they're going to do something, they actually do it, and keep doing it even when nobody claps. You've got to understand nobody is coming to rescue you. Nobody is going to randomly discover you unless you give them something to discover. You don't need everyone to like it. You don't need 10, 0 people on day 1. You need proof of work, a body of effort that shows people you're not playing games, that you're serious, that you're willing to go first even when no one is watching, especially when no one is watching, because that's when it matters most, when no one's clapping, no one's validating. No one's commenting or sharing, and you do it anyway. You keep going anyway. That's what separates the ones who say they're about it from the ones who are about it. Everyone loves to talk about passion, but passion without proof is just noise. If you want people to care, give them a reason. Show them what obsession looks like, what consistency looks like, what courage looks like when it's uncomfortable and thankless. You don't need to be loud. You need to be undeniable. People pay attention to momentum. When they see you grinding for months, showing your progress, adapting, improving, they can't ignore that. But if all you do is talk about what you might do someday, you're just blending into the background with everybody else who's scared to move. Stop asking for support before you've earned it. You want people to cheer you on, but you haven't put in the reps. You want praise for work that hasn't been done yet. Nobody owes you that. It's not that they don't care about you as a person, it's that the world doesn't respond to intention. It responds to impact. And impact only comes from doing. So do something, do anything, start small, be messy, post that first video, launch that first version, write that first blog, sell that first product, make the thing real. It's not about perfection, it's about momentum. You'll get better as you go, but you'll never go anywhere if you're waiting for someone else to notice you before you move. You don't need permission. You don't need a round of applause. You don't need your family to understand it or your friends to approve. You just need to start, and when you do, that's when things shift. That's when the right people start paying attention. That's when the world opens up a little and says, okay, now I see what you're about. Until then, nobody cares, and that's the point. Perfection is a lie. It's one of the biggest traps people fall into, and it's killing dreams, stalling businesses, and destroying momentum every single day. You've been sold the idea that things need to be flawless before they're worth sharing, that unless something looks, feels, or performs perfectly, it shouldn't be released into the world. That mindset is toxic. It's paralyzing, and worst of all, it's fake, because perfection doesn't exist, not in business, not in art, not in relationships, not in life. You're chasing something that isn't real, and it's keeping you from doing the very thing that would actually move your life forward, taking action. The idea of perfection is rooted in fear. It's not about high standards or craftsmanship, it's about control. You want to control how people perceive you. You want to make sure nobody can criticize you. You want to eliminate every possible flaw so you won't have to feel uncomfortable, embarrassed, or vulnerable. But here's the thing, by trying to avoid all that, you're avoiding growth, you're avoiding momentum. You're avoiding the truth, and the truth is nobody starts perfect. Everyone you admire, every creator, entrepreneur, athlete, artist, speaker, they all started rough, they started awkward, they started small. But they started, and that's why they won. You're sitting on great ideas, incredible value, and unrealized potential because you think it's not ready. Guess what? It's never ready. It'll never be perfect. There's always one more tweak, one more thing to learn, one more piece to polish, but every second you spend trying to make something flawless is a second you're not in the game, you're in your head. You're playing defense, you're trying to protect your ego instead of building your legacy. The worst part is, perfectionism disguises itself as a good thing. It tells you that you're just trying to do things right, that you have high standards, that you care about your work, but what it's really doing is delaying your progress. Perfection is procrastination wearing a fancy suit. It's an excuse to not put yourself out there. It gives you the illusion of progress because you're working on something, but you're not sharing it, you're not testing it, you're not getting feedback, so you're not actually improving, you're just circling. Meanwhile, someone out there with less talent, less knowledge, and less experience is shipping work. They're posting, they're releasing, they're launching, they're making mistakes and learning faster than you ever will while you wait for the perfect moment. And guess what? The market rewards them, not because they're better, but because they're visible, because they're in motion, because they're doing. Perfection keeps you small. It shrinks your world down to what's safe and controllable. But nothing meaningful happens there. You don't grow when you're perfect. You grow when you're vulnerable, when you show your work and it's not quite right, when you post the video even though it's awkward, when you pitch the idea even though you're nervous. That's where the growth lives. That's where the confidence gets built, not from polishing endlessly behind the scenes, but from executing in public and learning on the fly. Let's be real, most people don't even want perfect. They want real, they want honest, they want human. Think about the content that actually connects with you, the things that make you feel something. It's rarely the polished, scripted, overly edited stuff. It's the raw, unfiltered, imperfect content that makes you think, wow, this person gets it. That's what people connect with, that's what people share. Because perfect feels distant, real feels relatable, the obsession with perfection also kills creativity. When you're so focused on getting everything right, you leave no room for experimentation, no room for mistakes, no room for surprise. But creativity requires risk, it requires imperfection, it requires stepping into the unknown and being okay with not having it all figured out. If you're trying to make something perfect, you're not being creative, you're being cautious. And caution doesn't innovate, it imitates. The truth is, you're not afraid of doing it wrong. You're afraid of being seen doing it wrong. That's ego, that's pride, and if you let that run the show, you'll never release anything. You'll sit on your gifts, your value, your voice, and the world will miss out, not because you weren't good enough, but because you let a lie convince you you had to be flawless first. Here's what you need to accept: progress matters more than perfection. Action matters more than intention. Consistency matters more than quality, especially early on. You'll get better over time. You'll figure it out. You'll learn from doing, but only if you start, only if you push through the discomfort of putting out work that isn't there yet. You want to be great, then be willing to be bad first. Be willing to be seen trying. Be willing to cringe at your old stuff 5 years from now, because that means you grew. So stop chasing perfect. Start chasing real. Start chasing done. Start chasing better than yesterday. That's where the wins live. That's where the fulfillment comes from. Perfection is a lie, but progress, that's the truth that builds empires. Anxiety thrives in stillness. It feeds off the thoughts you never say out loud, the plans you never act on, and the moments you let slip by while waiting for the right time. It's not just some random feeling that shows up out of nowhere, it's a consequence. It's what happens when you know deep down you should be doing something but you're not. When your brain is spinning in circles and your body is stuck in neutral, anxiety is the gap between knowing and doing. Action cuts through all of that. It doesn't have to be perfect, big, or even confident. It just has to happen, because action creates momentum, and momentum silences doubt. The moment you move, the voice in your head that's been telling you you're not good enough, not ready, not capable, it gets quieter, not because the fear is gone, but because you're proving it wrong in real time. Every step you take shrinks the distance between where you are and where you want to be, and that distance is where anxiety lives. The people who are constantly stuck in their heads, replaying worst-case scenarios, analyzing every little detail, waiting for clarity before they act, they're the ones anxiety eats alive. Why? Because their brains are overclocked while their lives are underactive. It's like trying to drive a car that's revving in park. All that energy with nowhere to go creates stress, frustration, and paralysis. Meanwhile, the people who just move, even if they don't have the full map, even if they mess up, those are the ones who feel more alive. Not because their lives are easier, but because they're not sitting around letting their mind build monsters out of shadows. Anxiety hates movement. It hates forward motion, because movement creates evidence. And evidence is the one thing anxiety can't argue with. You might feel like you're not good enough to post that video, launch that business, start that conversation. But once you do it, your brain starts to shift. It says, wait, I can do this. Even if the result isn't perfect, you've created something tangible that your anxious thoughts can't erase. You've proven that you can show up, and that proof builds self-trust, and self-trust is the antidote to anxiety. The trap most people fall into is thinking they need to feel better before they act. They wait to feel confident. They wait to feel ready. But the truth is, clarity comes after action. Confidence is built through doing. You don't need to feel amazing to start. You just need to start to feel a little more in control. Sitting around waiting for the fear to go away is like waiting for the rain to stop before you learn how to swim. It's not going to happen. The fear fades because you move, not the other way around. When you start doing, whatever that looks like for you, you begin to crowd out the anxiety. It doesn't get as much space to breathe. That's why little actions matter so much: making your bed, sending the email, filming the video, going for a walk, starting that side hustle. These aren't just to-do list items, they're votes for the kind of person you want to become. And each time you take action, even when you're scared, you're telling your brain, I'm in control. And that message changes everything. Here's what most people get wrong. They think action has to be huge, that it has to be a life-changing leap, but in reality, tiny steps compound. The people who win long-term aren't the ones who take one massive action. They're the ones who show up every day and take small, repeated action. That consistency becomes armor. It gives you rhythm, and rhythm is powerful because it replaces chaos. You're not just reacting to life anymore. You're responding with intention. Think about the last time you were truly anxious. Were you doing anything? Probably not. You were thinking, spinning, doubting, maybe laying in bed overanalyzing every decision you've ever made. That's not progress, that's self. Sabotage disguised as preparation. Now think about a time you felt proud, alive, clear. You were probably in motion, creating something, solving something, helping someone. Progress and anxiety can't live in the same space for long. One will always outwork the other. And it's usually whichever one you feed. That's why action is so underrated, because it's not just productive, it's healing. It puts you back in the driver's seat of your life. It grounds you in reality instead of drowning in hypotheticals. And that doesn't mean the fear disappears. You'll still be nervous. You'll still overthink sometimes. You'll still doubt. But the difference is, now you're moving through it instead of sitting in it. That's the key, not waiting for the fear to disappear, but choosing to move anyway. Because the truth is, you don't fix anxiety by thinking your way out of it. You do your way out of it. You take the next step, even if it's shaky. You take action even if it's small. You build the proof brick by brick that you are more powerful than your fear, that your dreams are louder than your doubts, that your life is worth building even if your hands shake while you build it. Action is the cure, not the end result, not the applause, not the approval, the act itself. Because when you're doing, you're no longer just surviving. You're taking control, you're creating momentum. You're becoming the version of yourself that anxiety hoped you'd never meet. And that version doesn't sit around waiting to feel better. They get up, they move, they do. Ideas are worthless without execution. That might sound harsh, but it's the truth. The world is full of people with good ideas, clever strategies, ambitious plans, revolutionary concepts. But most of those ideas never see the light of day. Why? Because they stay in people's heads, they never get executed, and in the real world, it's not the idea that wins, it's the follow-through. It's the willingness to show up, take action, get dirty, and push through the discomfort of turning a thought into a result. Execution is what separates dreamers from doers. Talking about what you're going to do doesn't move the needle. Planning endlessly doesn't build anything. Brainstorming feels productive, but without action, it's just a comfort zone disguised as progress. Execution is what turns possibility into proof. It's the bridge between the life you imagine and the one you actually live. And most people never cross that bridge, not because they can't, but because they won't. They get caught up in fear, perfectionism, or waiting for the right time. But the right time is always now, because doing something imperfectly today beats waiting to do it perfectly tomorrow. The market doesn't reward the best ideas. It rewards the best execution. You could have the most brilliant business model, the most compelling story, the most creative content strategy, but if it never leaves your mind, it doesn't matter. Meanwhile, someone else with a simpler idea but the courage to act on it is out there winning. Getting feedback, learning, adjusting, growing, not because they were smarter, but because they did something. They put something into the world, and that gave them a head start most people never catch up to. Execution also builds credibility. People don't respect talk. They respect results. When you follow through, when you say you're going to do something and then actually do it, people notice, not because it's flashy, but because it's rare. Most people flake, most people stall, most people get stuck in someday, but execution creates trust, both with others and with yourself. Every time you follow through, you're sending a message to your brain. I do what I say I'll do. That's where confidence comes from. Not from hype or motivation, but from evidence, from a track record of doing the work, especially when it's hard, inconvenient, or scary. The beautiful part about execution is that it doesn't require perfection. It rewards consistency. You don't have to crush it every single time. You just have to keep showing up, because execution is a volume game. You try, you learn, you tweak, you try again. That process compounds. Every video you post, every pitch you make, every rep you put in, it adds up. And eventually, the gap between you and the people who never started becomes too big to ignore. People overcomplicate execution. They think it has to be some massive effort, that everything needs to be perfectly aligned before they can start, that they need more money, more support, more clarity, but the truth is, most of that is just an excuse to stay safe. Execution doesn't mean doing everything at once. It means doing something, one step, one post, one sale, one cold call, one act of courage. You don't need the full map, you just need to move. The people who make it in life, the ones who build businesses, grow platforms, create impact, they're not magical. They're not always the most talented or smartest in the room, but they have the discipline to execute. To do the work, day in and day out, without needing external validation to keep going. They're not waiting to be discovered. They're not waiting for motivation. They're doing, and that's what creates separation over time. Not just from the people who quit, but from the people who never started. Execution is also the fastest way to learn. You can read every book, watch every tutorial, study every expert, but until you apply it, none of it matters. You don't really understand something until you do it, and often the best lessons come from failing, from messing up, from taking action and realizing, okay, that didn't work. Now I know. That feedback loop is everything. But you can't enter the loop if you're stuck in analysis mode. Execution invites reality into the equation. It takes your idea out of your imagination and puts it up against the real world, and yeah, that's scary. But it's also the only way to grow. If you're sitting on something right now, a business you want to start, a project you want to launch, a goal you've been dreaming about, the only thing standing between you and it is execution. Not talent, not luck, not timing, execution. You don't need more inspiration. You need action, because once you move, everything else gets clearer, momentum builds, confidence rises, doors start to open. Not because the world suddenly changed, but because you did. Execution is not glamorous, it's not always fun, it's often repetitive, unsexy, and thankless, but it's the price of admission. It's the tax you pay to turn vision into value. You don't get to skip it, you don't get to outsource it. You either execute, or you watch someone else execute on a lesser idea and win while you're still thinking about yours. So stop waiting, stop planning endlessly, stop assuming you need more before you begin. You already have enough to take the first step, and that step, it matters, because in the real world, the scoreboard doesn't care about your ideas. It only counts your execution.